Well, Israel has launched a new wave of strikes on Beirut's southern suburb. The attacks followed more forced evacuation orders by the Israeli military. Israel says it's hitting Hezbollah targets in the city. More than 1 million Lebanese people have been displaced by Israel's offensive. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the Israeli army to widen its offensive in southern Lebanon. He says it's meant to increase security along the border after attacks by Hezbollah.
And in Lebanon, I have now instructed the military to further expand the existing security belt in order to finally thwart the threat of invasion and to keep the anti-tank missile fire away from our border. We eliminated thousands of Hezbollah terrorists, and above all, we eliminated the enormous threat of 150,000 missiles and rockets, which were intended to destroy Israeli cities. But Hezbollah still has a residual ability to launch rockets at us, and what I discussed today with the commanders here is ways to eliminate this threat as well.
Okay, let's take a view at how the situation is looking on the ground in southern Lebanon. Israel's defense minister said the ground invasion is about creating what he calls a buffer up to the Litani River, you can see there. But the Israeli military has issued forced evacuation orders further north as far as the Litani River. Israeli forces are advancing now on multiple fronts from Nakora in the southwest to Bint Jbeil in the south, as well as towards Kiam by the Litani River. All right, let's dig in now to this situation, particularly in southern Lebanon. We can speak to Ali Rizk, who's a security affairs analyst. Ali, great to have you with us. First up, what's your assessment of this push by Israel in the south of Lebanon and the possibility or not of them actually reaching the Litani River?
Well, as your correspondent was saying, I think that the Israeli army obviously does have the capability to reach the Litani River. But if you listen to Hezbollah's leadership recent statements, there's been an emphasis on going back to the guerrilla warfare tactics. For example, its Secretary General, Sheikh Naim Qasim, has always stated that we don't necessarily prevent the army from advancing, but we prevent the Israeli army from being able to hold or settle. So it's about in preventing the Israeli army not from clearing, but from clearing and holding. That's where I think Hezbollah is going to focus. So the Israeli army, yes, it can advance to the Litani River, but I think then it's going to encounter severe difficulties, just like it did in 2006. And I think that in that regard, Hezbollah learned from the mistakes it made in the 66-day war, because if you recall, particularly after Hezbollah intervened in Syria, it became closer to a conventional military than being a group that resorts to or depends on guerrilla warfare tactics. And I think that cost Hezbollah dearly in the 66-day war, because when you fight the Israeli military as a peer-to-peer conventional force, most likely you're going to lose, given the huge technological and other capabilities which the army possesses. But
this Hezbollah strategy, this guerrilla strategy of wearing Israel down, is it likely to work given that how much Hezbollah have been, severely diminished as a force? Well,
look, I would argue about that. There's no doubt that Hezbollah was dealt some serious, unprecedented blows during the 66-day war, including the assassination of its former leader, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. But if you look at the military performance right now by Hezbollah, ever since it started this latest round of warfare a few weeks ago, it's been quite impressive. That's not only my opinion, but it's the opinion of many observers who have underscored that Hezbollah has shown a great capability of recovering. Now, is it the same force it used to be? Perhaps not, but it's still proving itself capable of causing the Israelis a very severe headache. And I think that if you go to that scenario of a ground incursion, Hezbollah still does retain a significant capability of inflicting heavy losses in the ranks of the Israeli military. Now, just one point, I think, which has to be said, Hezbollah also has a point to prove that it hasn't been severely diminished, as many people believe to be the case. And that's why we're seeing it behave or take this very aggressive military posture or resort to these very aggressive military operations. At the same time, the Israeli Premier Benjamin Netanyahu, he also has a point to prove by saying that, look, I dealt Hezbollah serious blows in the 66-day war. Hezbollah is severely weakened. I want it to remain severely weakened. That explains, or that's one of the reasons why he's resorting, I think, to this large-scale ground offensive, which appears to be in the making.
Ali, let me just jump in there, because I just want to get one more question in. I'm sorry to jump in, but Israel, of course, from their point of view, would argue that there is a need to take control of southern Lebanon because it's necessitated by the fact that they need to defend against Hezbollah continuing throwing rockets into northern Israel.
Well, the Israelis have used this particular logic ever since October 7, Operation Al-Aqsa Storm, whereby they said that now they need to have forward defenses. That's the argument. Now, I think that there's more to it than that, of course. I think there's a greater ideological project at play, meaning the Greater Israel project. Look at what they did in Syria. Now, the new Syrian government, President Ahmed al-Shara, he's saying openly that he doesn't want war. He's not looking for war with Israel. Despite that, the Israelis took large swaths of Syrian territories. So I think that the Israelis have certain ideological or territorial ambitions which go beyond the mere defense pretext. And I think that, frankly speaking, is playing to Hezbollah's advantage, because Hezbollah can use that particular rhetoric, the rhetoric of a Greater Israel, to say, look, we still need it, there still needs to be a resistance, etc. So I think that the Israelis are actually playing into the hands of their enemies when they openly express their enthusiasm for territorial ambitions.
Ali Rizk talking to us there from Beirut. Thanks, Ali.